And we're here. Yes. Whether you like it or not, we are live. All right, everyone. Welcome to Masculine Geek number 116. This is the Fireside Chat series. And you get James and I tonight. And maybe someone from the chat. We'll see. We'll see how we're feeling. I do have some geek intel. It's very rare, but every once in a while I have something to show off. I had written a MG newsletter article about this a little over a year ago about the coolness of pocket watches, and I had recently picked up a few more batteries because my batteries had drained for my pocket watch, so I needed a new one. And this is from Swiss. We were just talking about the pronunciation of the name. I think it's Tissot. I think the last T is silent, Tissot. And you can see, there it is.
There we are. Now it's just focused on it.
Cool. Now, a little known fact about the jeans, no doubt everyone in this chat and viewing is wearing. Men's jeans on your right hip, your right jeans pocket. There is a little small pocket above the main one. That is a pocket watch pocket. That's what that's for. So gentlemen, start wearing a pocket watch. It's cool. No one else is doing it. And it's a conversation starter. You pull out your watch. You can get the kind without the lid, as it were. This one takes an extra step. You have to flip it open. Then you may say,
might
hey,
not be a positive conversation. I thought that pocket was just a flex on women. Like we have a pocket the size of women's pockets inside our own pocket.
Exactly.
And we get to make fun of them for it.
Yeah, well, it's above. It's visible. You lift up your shirt, you can see it. It rides above.
No, I can see that. I just thought the purpose was misogyny.
Oh, everything is. Yeah, don't you know anything? Jesus, it's misogyny and pocket watches. So it's it's very patriarchal to have a pocket watch on your jeans. So there you go. I thought that's where you put extra. You can totally put extra condoms there. You can ride along with your pocket watch. However, if you pull out your pocket watch, your condoms may fly out onto the floor or what have you. So just be careful with that. I wouldn't put your condoms in your.
Well,
pocket.
there you are.
Although you can.
That's the real conversation starter. Is no, I lost my Magnum condoms from my.
Exactly. It's like usually I carry my condoms here, but today I've got my pocket watch. So my adventures and introduction to pocket watches began when I was a kid, 12 or 13. I was raised Roman Catholic, so for my Holy Communion, I got a pocket watch. I think a Timex or some shit. A cheap little bastard, but it was cool. But I ran through them a lot, so every year my parents would buy me a pocket watch to replenish the one that I had destroyed. You know, you got a preteen running around, riding his bike, getting into fights and carrying a pocket watch. It's not going to last long. It's like, it's like shoes when you're a kid. So I will be carrying this again. And it's a little more elegant, it's more dignified. I mean, yes. Can I lean over and pull out this and, oh, no, it's 906. Yeah, I could. Absolutely could. I could, do like everyone else and do the wristwatch thing. I never really cared for the wristwatch.
Really?
I get it's a nice accessory. They look good. They can be very powerful. And for some guys, yeah, that's cool. Never really did the wristwatch. Not my thing. So, yeah, pocket watch, gentlemen. Get yourselves a pocket watch. Fill that pocket watch pouch in your jeans.
With a pocket watch.
With a pocket watch. Yes, not your condoms, Bull Rush. I mean, if you want to do that, that's fine. I'm not gonna tell you not to do that, but be a little more. Try something different. Go out and grab a pocket watch. Get a starter pocket watch.
That he could probably fit both.
Probably, yeah. You get one of those large. Thank you, Bacon, for the 223. Would you like to read that, James?
Of course I would. He says, hitting the road in a rental. What did I miss? Nothing.
Absolutely nothing. We just started, so you didn't really miss anything. And cheers to everyone in the chat.
Cheers indeed.
Oh, shit. What are these condoms you speak of? Well, you got a bunch of little bacons running around there, Bacon, unless you're snipped. Stuff a bandana in there. It's probably the wrong section of your pants that you're stuffing a bandana. I own a few pocket watches myself. Oh, cool, Bull Rush. Next time you come on, you have to show those off. They go great. I mean, not for nothing. It's a great juxtaposition along with the straight razor. I think we need to bring these back. I'll have to repost my article. Maybe I'll repost that in the Masculine Geek newsletter. So if you haven't signed up for the newsletter and you'd like to read that, well, you can go to the website and read it, or you can sign up for the newsletter and read it as well. And this is monogram that has my initials. So yeah, in case I forget who I am. This watch is your birthright. Exactly. And I was just thinking of that movie too. No, this was not shoved up anyone's ass to hide it or to sneak it across a foreign border. So no pocket watches up the ass. Sorry. Anyway, so we're going to start off today's broadcast. Oh, and let me preface it by saying we're going to keep these short. We do these about an hour and 15 minutes. So let's get started. We're going to talk games and game design, and we're going to focus on James because that's what he does. That's his other full-time job. So where are you? Let's start off with where you're at now with your current project, and then we can back it up to how you got started and your motivation in game design in general. So I just want to get some updates, some news where you're at.
Currently, I'm working on I have a tabletop project that I'm engaged with. I'm in the end stages of finishing up. This was one of our previous Kickstarters, which was for a module, basically. Because I right now everything I do is in tabletop, because tabletop has a much lower barrier to entry. And if you're somebody like me who did not have access to capital, didn't have access to a team at the time, but had the design chops, tabletop is an excellent place to go, with the caveat that you have a lot more competition, and it's a lot more of a fractured user base, and there are other problems, there are other disadvantages starting in tabletop. So right now I'm finishing up a project, finishing up commitments, getting my co-writer to do his work and getting stuff done myself. And we're just in the end stages of wrapping up a project. And I'm in the beginning stages of starting a tabletop focused magazine. That's my next big project is getting a tabletop, game design and in general, gaming magazine in general, but with a focus on tabletop, because that's where, again, that's the talent pool I have access to now that I can hire other people and work with other people is still localized in tabletop. So that's who I'm working with at the moment.
Okay, cool. So you have your hands full, basically.
Oh yeah, all the time.
No, and this magazine is obviously electronic. It's going to be online, right?
It's going to be online, but thanks to people who do things like Streissand, he's my buddy Alex on Twitter, runs a pulp magazine where he will output 2,000 to 4,000 words, so these short pulp stories, and compile them into a seasonal magazine. And he puts them out every season, and it's this wonderful collection of pulp stories from new authors and people just kind of enjoying themselves, giving you high octane action, beautiful babes, strong men, strong protagonists, swords and space, and everything that you could possibly want. Everything that you wanted to read as a kid compiled for your access as an adult.
Basically going back to the pulps of the 40s, 50s, and 60s.
Exactly. And so because I have access to him, I can talk with him about guidance regarding printing costs and stuff like that. Because one of my advantages when I started engaging in the tabletop industry was that I was willing to tackle and put out physical products, physical rewards for these different Kickstarters. I was willing to tackle that. And because I was willing to tackle that, more people were willing to pay attention to these different Kickstarters. And so it is primarily going to be online, but I'm not going to shy away from doing a print option if there's enough interest. And I have a very low bar for what I mean by enough interest. If it goes over like $1,000, like I'll start putting physical copies out. I don't mind. Because people like having physical artifacts.
Oh, absolutely. If you weren't going to do a physical copy, that I was going to suggest and actually say, hey, maybe a physical copy, and I'll kick in, some capital, as it were, a silent partner,
which I appreciate.
Mm-hmm. And before we get into your origin story, as it were, Amos is here. He has a little announcement.
Morning.
So Amos, how are you?
Everybody get out.
I didn't think you were going to just drop me in right away.
I'm going to drop you in right away, yes. That's what you get.
Yeah. I politely asked.
You did, and I appreciate that, but you're getting dropped. You're getting airdropped in. Yep.
I mean, so just saying, I guess next Wednesday I'm joining the D&D campaign.
Correct.
I will be joining as a wizard. I know I'm still we're still communicating with Rollo on the exact details, but an elf wizard will be joining the campaign. I don't know what I'll be doing exactly. It's a blending of like 5th edition characters with 1st edition rules, so I'm kind of still figuring out what that's going to look like.
Most of the character creation, for the most part, it's 5th edition. The feats and some stuff like that, and just the actual abilities and the pluses and minuses therein. A lot of the dungeon master techniques on the back end are 1st edition, as far as critical hits and advantage and things like that, saving throws and whatnot. So
my understanding is 1st edition is deadlier.
It really is, yeah. And we're most likely going, as we continue to go forward, transition more into a 1st edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons format. So, which I'm very happy about. That was my introduction was the red box set. Yeah. But I campaigned heavily and dungeon mastered heavily with 1st edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So, yes. All right, cool.
And we only started with 5th edition, so I'm like completely.
No, that's okay. Got to start somewhere. Just the fact that I'm very not going to pat myself on the back, but I'm glad we were instrumental in moving you forward and you playing and getting interested in D&D.
Yeah. Always was curious about it, but just never it was always like way back there in the back of the mind. And then I think it was the episode where you guys had our my friend Conk on. You guys were talking about Magic the Gathering and stuff, and he mentioned D&D.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, look, adults play this too.
We do, yeah.
And then I'd encountered some people kind of around where I live who were also playing it, then kind of got into it through there. But then, just as quickly as I got into it was just as quickly that I figured out about, all the really fun stuff about it nowadays with all the new materials and the new rules and the new woke stuff going on with it.
It's and Robert, I know you're in the chat. You had tweeted some stuff to me. I'll get to your question in a little bit. Bring their cats in box wine. Yeah, indeed. Hey, if you want to bring a cat in a box wine to your D&D game, whatever, that's fine. Just don't tell me. Just don't tell me about it. I don't care.
I just don't want the cat on the table because then I gotta introduce a monster on the table now.
Exactly. It's the feline dragon. Excuse me. All right, cool. So that we've got Amos in. We got his why he's here, and there you go. And Robert is also playing as well.
Oh,
yeah, he's
full party.
Yep. So yeah, we were down. We were running 6, I think, at one time.
You, TJ, Rob,
and Spencer,
Drew,
dude, Spencer, and Spencer, yeah,
Clary,
yeah.
That was it, right? Yeah,
I think so. So yeah, 6 plus the DM 7. So we had 7 on the screen. It wasn't too bad. It was pretty cool. So we lost 3, and now we're gaining 2. We really need magic. We need fire. Yeah, don't go too heavy on the defensive spells there, Amos. We want you as an offensive mage wizard.
Well,
We want you to.
he is. I mean, in terms of 5th edition rules, he's an evocation wizard. So,
All right, cool.
yeah, this is a good timing since I just ended the first campaign I ever ran about a month ago.
Oh,
We're
okay.
kind of taking a break until June, maybe.
All right.
One of the people has kids in school and they want to wait till kids are out of school before they start any new campaign.
Gotcha.
So
Cool. Very cool. Well, we look forward to having you on board. So excellent. Now back to James. What was there because I started reading fantasy books and then transitioned to Dungeons and Dragons. Did you have a similar experience, or was it reverse or in conjunction?
Not quite. I read a lot of Christian fantasy when I was younger.
Okay.
The Ted Dekker was a really huge influence. I would go into our church had a library, so I would. In fact, the church that we went to at the time, is not far away from you. It's Fellowship. Now it's Fellowship Community Church. It used to be Fellowship Baptist.
Oh, okay.
They have a library in there, and I would just go in. If I saw Ted Dekker on the wall, I would devour it. Like huge 1,000-page books that I would start reading on the way home because it's a little bit of a drive to my house.
You may want to read this one specifically for you.
Guys, D&D is satanic. Read the Bible instead.
Wow.
Yeah.
I got nothing.
he's just
it's even better. Just read both.
Exactly. You can probably incorporate them both in some weird fashion. Absolutely.
A Bible-based campaign.
Yeah, there you go. It'll turn the flood into something interesting.
But but yeah, I would be reading these books on the way home, and we would get home, and I would continue reading those books, just completely oblivious to the fact that we got home, sitting in the car.
Cool.
Until I finished the book some 3 or 4 hours later. And that's where I got into speed reading. And I always wanted to be a game designer. I had no idea that tabletop gaming existed. Mike says that was his joke, by the way. I know some people actually believe that. Well, yeah, thank God.
He's considering. Don't stop thinking about it. Do it. Go do it. Just and go on to the DM's Guild, the Dungeon Masters Guild. Or you could probably get the reprints on Amazon too, and get yourself the 1978-79 Advanced Dungeons and Dragons books, the first edition, if you will. Go do that, and I would say start there. So there you go, and pick yourself up.
And if you decide not to go the AD&D route, I will recommend that you choose literally anything other than D&D.
James is not a big.
I'm a big fan of AD&D, and there's
that's what I mean. Yeah.
Precepts within that have influenced me, but I'm of the new school that I am not a fan of the various editions that were skin suiting D&D, with one exception, because it's a completely different game. But
you mean 4th edition?
4th edition, exactly.
Yeah, 4th edition is it really is, and it has merit. I actually enjoyed 4th edition.
4th edition is a lot of fun. I consider everything past 2nd edition to basically anything that wasn't TSR D&D is basically not D&D. They're separate games.
Correct.
By the definition of separate games, just looking at the rules, what the game that the rule sets produce, which is part of that was when I first started studying things like game design, which is what I started doing right around the time I was getting into 3D modeling. So around 13, no, it was around 10, because that's where I started learning about 3D modeling and animation. My parents, in a completely unexpected turn of events, supported something I did and bought me a stop motion animation kit.
Oh, cool.
I started learning. Yeah, that was so much fun.
I'll bet. Yeah,
animation and Lego. Very simple camera, which was my webcam up until recently. And up until a few years ago, I had this little button on, and I would open up the software. And if I pressed the button on the camera, it would take a frame. So I didn't have to
Ah,
go to the computer and click something, and that's how I would
yeah.
do the stop motion animation. And
Okay.
I would be learning about these different game design principles along the way, and I was just fascinated by the subject. It was what I
Yeah.
wanted to go into.
Hmm.
Parents had no interest in supporting that. I have no idea what their plan was. They had some sort of idea that I would be going to college for something. I have no idea what it was. And my dad passed away around 13.
Oh shit.
And so whatever plan they had for whatever I was going to be was just like completely up in the air. It was like, all right, all hand. Yeah, it was just a mess. I have no idea what they were planning. I still to this day have no idea if there was any kind of idea for what I was going to be. But I kept studying in my off time, like these different principles that I would be engaging with, and kept studying them in some vain hope that one day I would be able to engage in game design. And then my buddy had a bunch of friends move away, but we knew each other from when we were kids. Our parents, our fathers in particular, were really good friends. And he invited me over to come play some board games, and we decided this would be a weekly thing. And one day he busted out Dungeons and Dragons, and it clicked immediately. I was like, this is so much fun. And there were a few problems in the first campaign because I didn't understand certain things, and I was way more antisocial back then. This was like my first real, like, consistent social experience in an environment that wasn't designed to produce terrible people like school. So I started studying the game and learning, like, okay, so you're telling me, and this is my spiel, you're telling me I can take a game, I can make things for it, I don't need to know how to code, I don't need to know how to produce art, I don't need a team of people who can do either of those things. I can just take design principles and translate them into the syntax, the unique dialect of this game, and sell it. Turns out the answer was yes. One winter off when because I'm a seasonal worker, where I was for the golf course. One winter off, I said, "Oh, let me try this out. Let me try this Kickstarter thing out." Ran a successful Kickstarter. Those successful Kickstarters got more and more successful, got bigger and bigger, and here I am now, producing for the tabletop industry. And I'm hoping I can trade up and get some people in the video game industry or get some people in the comic industry, but that's complicated. That's basically where I got my start.
Okay, I like it. And now, what's your favorite game to play? Actually, are you involved in? You're doing the game design, but are you for entertainment and enjoyment? Are you playing?
Tabletop or video games or both?
Let's go with both. Yeah, let's go with both.
Okay. For tabletop, I really enjoy Lancer.
Okay. What is that?
Lancer. So Lancer's a ton of fun. It is a new school, free. Sort of uses 4th edition as a little bit of a template. It's D20 based, sort of. No, it's not D20 based. Lancer is a free-to-play game based on piloting giant robots, piloting mechs.
Oh, like BattleTech.
Yeah, like BattleTech, except it's a lot faster paced.
Oh, nice.
Because I hear from people like Jeffrey Johnson that BattleTech is a lot of like rolling armor checks until like a missile finally blows off a piece of somebody's mechs, and then
it's fun because it's very war game. It's very tabletop war game, and I love that. And there's strategy involved, and there's different elevations and the heat sinks and the things you have to like keep track of. Thank you, Mr. Clary.
Aaron Clary for $2 says James still sounds sick. Yes, I do. I did some recording earlier today, and I noticed that there's still stuff up here. Unfortunately, spring's arrival is still taking its toll on me. Though I love spring.
And you've seen the pollen and everything. I was cleaning off my motorcycle seat, all that shit.
The clouds of green wafting through my property.
Yeah, it's like some kind of bizarre alien infestation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's my favorite tabletop game at the moment.
All right.
And my favorite video game. Well, you first.
Oh no, I was going to say, and your video game, what's that? What are you rocking?
Probably still Titanfall 2, which is another game about giant robots. It's
Okay,
a
cool.
very fast-paced multiplayer, primarily multiplayer game, but they did include a single-player campaign. You play as a pilot who's able to do things like run on walls and bounce around between different areas. They have different tactical gear that they're able to access. Very fast-paced gameplay for the pilot specifically, but once you build up a core in which you're able to call down a Titan, which is a large, about 2-story humanoid mech that you're able to use to fight pilots and other mechs and stuff like that. And it's this very interesting. It was this very interesting. Basically, they made for the first game, they made Call of Duty, but we're going to include giant robots in it. And how can we balance it so that you could have the individual scale, a person, right, for your first-person shooter running around, and have them still be able to take on or compete or combat with these very large robots? And that was their design question. And they succeeded in the original Titanfall, and they definitely succeeded for Titanfall 2, though there were certain things that they could improve upon. Titanfall 2 came out like 6 years ago, I think. Or maybe it was like 5 years ago, and it still has a pretty strong player base. Anytime they're made by the same developers as the Battle Royale Apex, which takes place in the same universe. Just it was so critically acclaimed for its movement system and the way it balanced, giant robots with pilots that were engaged in this kind of asymmetrical play. Just there's so many things I could talk about, but it's a ton of fun. I like giant robots. I like bouncing around as a pilot in between buildings and engaging in this rather ridiculous movement system. It's a lot of fun, and that's one of my future projects, is figuring out how to mod that, how to take that and port it to probably Unreal Engine. I'm assembling a team for that now, because I'd like to experiment with that in the Battle Royale genre. And one of the big problems that Titanfall 2 had was it didn't have like modded servers. There wasn't an easy way for fans to create content and make that accessible to other fans.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, cool. That's my favorite video game at the moment.
The video game realm, especially with those kind of games, I'm completely out of the loop. I mean, I still play Neverwinter Nights and Icewind Dale, and well, the most recent one would be Diablo 3 occasionally, but that's about it. I lean more towards the fantasy games, medieval fantasy.
Right. Say that's the other. I don't like medieval fantasy. I like Vancian fantasy. I like I like spellpunk. I like it when I like post-apocalyptic fantasy.
Okay.
Like the Dying Earth by Vance is
correct.
One of the most incredible work I've ever read. I was just stunned reading the first page of a description of this wizard who's sitting at his home and he's going through his garden, which is made of these mutated, magically crafted animals and plants that he's designed to serve specific functions. And he walks into his laboratory where he's got like a human living in a vat, this mindless person that he's designed to be perfect. And then he goes through this gallery of weird gadgets that he either uses or creates, and it's this mind-numbingly open. It's this mind-opening glance into what fantasy can be when it's not limited by like the Tolkien pastiche. And no disrespect to Tolkien, of course. It's just that there's all this fantasy that got left behind in the promotion of his products, largely after his death.
Correct. Oh, he was the first to. I mean, that was epic fantasy began with him. So,
not quite. He's a little bit more based on somebody called Lord Dunsany. Dunsany.
Lord Dunsany, who was H.P. Lovecraft was a huge fan and borrowed heavily from Lord Dunsany. Correct.
Yeah, which is, I mean, that's a fascinating bit of correspondence between those two people. You wouldn't expect cosmic horror with the King of Elfland's daughter. You don't expect there to be an intersection here, but those two, there was something about the creative spark that those two saw in each other, and they were able to borrow from. It's fascinating to me.
Oh yeah. The same with Robert E. Howard and their correspondence. The H.P. Lovecraft purported to write, correspondence-wise, the letters like over 100,000. I think 80,000 letters were actually archived and held on to. But I do have the 2 volumes of the correspondence between H.P. Lovecraft and Robert E. Howard. And likewise, the creative spark between the two, they just their minds gelled nicely. They got each other on that creative level. So that's kind of cool.
And it's a lot of fun, and those are the sorts of things that inspire me. Because I would take this goes back to the origin question. Is I became one of my favorite lines is I became a game designer out of spite. I became a game designer out of spite. There were these people constantly, because I started with the 5th edition rule set, and there were people constantly telling me, well, they left this blank so that you could do it yourself, and they left this other thing blank so that you could make it up yourself and stuff like that. And eventually I said, fine, I'll make it myself.
I'm going to make it myself, you fuck.
Yeah, fine, I'll do it. And
I'll do it, damn it.
Along experimenting those lines, experimenting with the design, I finally figured out, okay, turns out you actually can't do these specific. You either can't, or it's too disruptive to include these new elements into play. It's too disruptive to include, for instance, a new class that has the right number of features that you would prefer, because that doesn't match up with all the other classes. If it doesn't match up with all the other classes, or isn't at the very least comparable to those classes, GMs are going to reject it. Other people might not be interested in playing them, but they might not work unless they have specific gameplay elements included in them. If you have gameplay elements that are unique to that specific class, too unique to where it's sent off the side of the core progression or the core mode of play, like I can't introduce a class about building armies and commanding them, because the core mode of play is individualized combat. But I would like to have armies. I would like to have battles. And so I have to introduce this other system into the game this other subsystem, if I want that element of play within the game.
TSR did that too with large scale armies, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they had chainmail and stuff like that. So, because it was sort of designed from the get-go to match in some capacity with Advanced Dungeons and Dragons or AD&D or 2nd edition, for instance.
Yeah.
But if I want to introduce that to the game now, as other people have done, I have to worry about things like, how does mass combat translate to individual combat? Not just are these numbers compatible, or is this sensible? I have to worry about, does this take too much time? Because 5th edition combat, especially if you have a loaded party, already takes way too much time.
Correct.
There's a low lethality element of 5th edition, but it's low lethality in an extremely dissatisfying manner, because you could have very high damaging creatures and high damaging effects. You could add those into the game, but it's probably still not going to kill your party, but it is going to knock them down rapidly across the course of the battle, because you could make so many death saves, and you can, if you get knocked down, you start making, it doesn't kill you, you just start making death saves, and somebody could spend 1 hit point. Somebody can heal you up 1 hit point, and now it resets the whole process.
Correct. Yeah.
Which keeps your character alive, but it's incredibly dissatisfying across the course of combat. It's just a slog where I'm getting yo-yoed back up and down. It's very unsatisfying. So if I'm going to introduce high lethality elements, I went through a checklist throughout the game and decided that every element of this fantasy game was in some way or another dissatisfying to me. It took too much time. It didn't offer enough crunch for the amount of time it took. It didn't do any of the things it said it was going to do, and it certainly didn't do them better than any other game out there. It was incredibly hard to design for. Because if I want a campaign if I wanted an adventure or module to meet certain elements and produce certain effects for the players and a certain level of satisfaction and thematic completion for different people playing it, I have so many hoops I have to jump through to make a mediocre product in the end. It's very frustrating. So that was my design story, is how I got started in design.
Gotcha. Competent Man has a question directed at me and everyone else, I guess, the panel. You want to read it, and then I'll weigh in?
Absolutely. It says, what edition of D&D do people think is the best? My impression was the 3.5 version with the open license was the one people really liked and numbers still stay with.
Now, I can't speak to everyone. I will say I grew up with it, so there's a special place in my heart for it. For the red box D&D basic set and the first edition AD&D rules. And I had mentioned to someone else in the chat, if they're going to start out, go ahead and give the advanced Dungeons & Dragons rules a shot and start there. There's a certain sense of nostalgia and I don't know, sentimentality involved in that as far as I'm concerned. Having said that, I did enjoy 4th edition. It was a complete departure. I shouldn't say all of them, but most of the editions are a complete departure from Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. So I would say start with that first. That's original old school, and see how you like that. And then if you want, give 4th edition, maybe 5th edition a try, or at least read over a PDF version of the rules. I would go with that first.
Edition, ever. I'm going to put my foot down on that. It's designed as a mousetrap.
Well, if you wanted to give it a shot as far as reading it, get a PDF, or if someone has his friend has it, have them send it to you, so you're not wasting any money, and then decide for yourself. I wouldn't buy any hard editions. I'm saying this, even the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, for the artwork, it's good, but buy the PDF versions of these first, read them through, see what you like, maybe what you would like to try. If you go to meetup.com and you have some friends you want to get together, like Amos did that. He had some friends that he knew around him, and he started dungeon mastering a campaign. But read the PDF first, the electronic version first.
That's a pretty good idea.
Yeah, I would. And then you can say, oh, you know what? I like this. And with the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, they're collector's items. There's something special about that. And it's that hardback with actual binding, not this shit that you see today with the hot glue and you open the first page and the shit starts to separate and come apart. No, this actual saddle stitched binding books. So if you do decide that, hey, AD&D is pretty cool, I like the nostalgia aspect to it. I like that this is the original. We're going back to original Gygaxian D&D play. Get the books. You will not be disappointed. So there you go. Amos, how about yourself? You started with 5th, correct?
Yeah. So having dungeon mastered a campaign, I would say 5th is simple for a lot of new players, but as is Dungeons and Dragons is Purview's homebrew. You can always do whatever you really want to. So I have a few set of rules that I already kind of give out to the players as like their homebrew rules. But for me, the first campaign was really just a sort of a fight between giving the players, more and more to do with their characters while also trying to raise the difficulty of monsters and encounters that were already in the book. So it was just, I'll give you guys the ability to kill while I give myself the ability to kill you more. Whereas when you look at first edition, I guess it was more, everything was deadly. So yeah, I guess it would be like 5th edition for the basic rules, but maybe with some, I'll probably learn this in the next few months, is with some first edition mix into that.
Yeah, and as I just pointed out, pick yourself up PDF rule player's handbook and check it out. Competent Man, that even the white box is before my time as far as me reading. So I was born in 1970, and Advanced Dungeons & Dragons was riding high in 78, 79. 77 too, I believe. But anyway, yeah, I was only 7, 8 years old at that point. I got into AD&D when I was 14. But yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about the white box set, just for its historical gaming purpose, just to have as a collector, and to lord it over everybody. Hey, I got the white box, so you don't. Ha ha ha. So that aspect of it as a collector is kind of cool. But I know Wizards of the Coast put out a special edition of that several years ago, and it was fairly pricey. And I thought about buying it, and then forgot about it, and then thought about it again. And like, nah, never mind. I'm good. I'm okay. If I don't have the original, I don't want the reprint. So, yeah.
Shay?
That's right. You dirty sons of bitches. I was going to ask a question and it completely went out of my fucking head.
No.
God damn it. This is what happens when you're born in 1970 and you're old like me. You have these frequent what the fuck moments. Anyway, I'm going to sip my beer. I'll let you guys say something. Have at it.
No problem. No problem at all. It was one of the moments that defined my different design philosophies and principles was engaging with 5th edition and learning that there are these two schools of design thought. There's old school, which tends to focus on multiple modes of play. Combat is extremely lethal. It's often over very quickly. The wilderness exploration and often the domain level play. So armies and armies and strongholds and stuff like that feature prominently within. That's the focus of the game. Then you have new school, which is focused on characters becoming individually more powerful, primarily. Characters getting oftentimes a similar amount of loot and abilities, number of loot, or amount of loot and number of abilities comparable to video games, where the character themselves is becoming quite formidable and powerful on their own, and greater able to gaining a better ability to face challenges on their own. And I like the old school modes of play, and I like bringing them. I don't think that they have to stay in old school. I think they can come over to the new school. I don't think that's an issue. I think it's just most designers don't tackle it. But I'm new school in my decisions. I like characters. I'm a power gamer. I like characters to get lots of abilities. If they get a level, I want them to get something for gaining that level, because levels are incremental markers of progress, and you measure progress in the things that you got. So if I'm sitting there and I've been playing for a few sessions, I'm like, all right, where's my magic sword? I killed that guy. Where's his magic sword that he was obviously just using on me? Like
exactly. That's like, that's mine now. That's mine. Yeah.
Yeah, that's me at the end of every session is.
Yeah. Well, with old school Dungeons and Dragons, you got an experience point for each gold piece you earned as well.
Right.
So that to me was that didn't set well with me. I always gave half a point per gold. I awarded a little bit because everything was. If you look at old school D&D, the progression levels are different based on class, and there was a bit of a meritocracy as far as like, okay, well, as far as my games were concerned, I would hand out extra XP or certain award points based on role playing or puzzle solving and things of that nature. That's actually what happened with the original old school gaming modules. All those gaming modules were convention. They were convention-based modules. It's how all of them started out. And the convention game was, I think, maybe anywhere between 2 to 4 hours. Right. And you had like 4 or 5 tables in the room playing the same model.
Chateau d'Amber.
I love that one. Yeah, exactly. That was the expert set. Yeah, X1 or X2 or something like that. So you had you had this one gaming module. You had maybe 4 or 5 tables running through it, each with their own dungeon master, which are their own DM style. Players having fun going through it, and then you receive points, major points, if you finished the quest. Then you got points for puzzle solving. You got points for role playing. You got points for this
tournaments in those conventions.
Yeah, they were all tournaments. It was all tournament style, and I liked that play. It's like you came in first, you get this. You came in second, you came in third. First, second, and third. Anyone else, you're done. So I like that style of play. Can you incorporate that in your own home games? Absolutely. So, Robert, you want to read this one?
Robert Kuzlin says, I think you can strive for a balance between the OSR feel and danger and the new school development and role-playing. I don't know if I would describe that as balance, but you could definitely do it. You can incorporate the two.
Correct.
But that's me nitpicking and being autistic, which is a great asset for game
you're allowed. We'll give you a couple experience points for nitpicking. Sure, there you go.
Excellent.
We'll do some tournament fireside chats. We'll see who can get the most points by the end of the
that was the thing,
one of the broadcast.
One of my longer standing projects, especially in the fantasy realm, is called Lords of Brachus, and I have 2 versions of it.
Hang on. You said that Lords of what?
Lords of Brachus, Brackas.
Okay.
Which is just a ancient word for world, I think. It's like Shirje or Earth or something like that.
Gotcha.
But so it's D20 version, which has its own set of ability scores, but it's resolved with a D20 as its primary element. And then there is a card-based version of it, where I was taking things like, okay, you're not so much controlling your character so much as you're influencing what your character is going to do. So you would have this deck, which represented the different things that your character could do. And you would draw 7 of them at the beginning of a combat or at the beginning of a social interaction. And we'd figure out what you would be choosing something from those options that you drew, which was this kind of dual solution to mechanical overhead, right? I need to worry, as a designer, I need to worry about how many times you're able to use this thing, what happens if you're able to just spam it, what happens if you have access to it at all times, and just incorporating a random element to it, where instead of having you roll on a table to figure out what you have access to, you could just be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And just like that, you're ready for the combat, ready to play. And also a little bit of a narrative to figure out, okay, what's going to happen here? What's going to happen? How are you going to resolve this encounter? You don't have every conceivable tool at your disposal. You have these few out of a very large set of them, which theoretically you could have had any of those, any number of combinations. So I can pack your resource, the number of different actions that you could be taking, besides the things that you might be improvising. I could just pack the game chock full of those things, because you're only going to have a certain number of them at any given time. But the pool that you're drawing from, I could bloat the shit out of that. It's a ton of fun. When it came to incorporating these other modes of play, like wilderness travel, managing your hirelings, owning or starting a guild, having a stronghold, having armies, and waging campaigns, that stuff is so attractive to me. The thing that attracted me to OSR was when I was playing these games, when I was playing 5th edition, every single time I sit down for the game, I'm like, I want to have a castle. I want to fight a war. I want to find magic, and I want to research a spell, and I want to make a magic item. That's like my bucket list. And I can't really cross any of those things off, but there's no reason as to why new school games couldn't do that. They just need new school designers to incorporate those things, because 3.5 was maybe a little bit new school, because there was all this bloat that was packed into the game. They wanted you to be able to do a lot of things, but it was like a first pass at new school design. And 5th edition is definitely not new school. 4th edition was new school. It was just, but there was no reason, to me, there was no reason why you couldn't have mass combat in 4th edition, or have different benefits for owning an airship, or having a thieves guild, or owning a temple. That's the stuff I'm interested in, is taking these different things that people have not been able to solve thus far and solving them.
Cool.
Because I want people to experience more things when they play their game. I don't want them to be the same set of combats, the same set of like, all right, well, we're going to walk in here and we're going to kill everything. And that's going to be the end of the game. And that's all we're going to do in the game is we go from place to place and killing things.
Yeah. Well, if you have a group of players that's what they want to do, then the DM can do that or not. I mean, a lot of my games, I have a tabletop game, a group that I play around the tabletop, although obviously not lately, and that will probably reconvene shortly. My best games are the ones where I have no idea what I'm going to do, and I key off the players, because I think part of the best fun of being a dungeon master is when you're sitting back, you've laid out the scenario, the event, as it were, and you've read the flavor text and you've maybe done some NPC work, and then you could be post or pre-battle, doesn't matter, but the players are all kind of almost in a huddle, and they're going back and forth, and they're talking, and they're really engaged about how we're going to do the next thing, how are we going to solve this problem. And sometimes the players come up with like, oh, I know what this is. And they'll say it to me. I'm like, no, that's not it. But I like that idea, and I won't say that. I'll go with that, and I'll make a note, because especially with NPCs coming up with names and names of towns, names of buildings, names of inns, names of innkeepers, and or what have you, guards, any kind of NPC, you're just gonna lose track.
Smith of Edinburgh.
Exactly. Yeah. You're like, all right, well, let me jot that down in my chicken scratch real fast.
And his partner Joseph.
Exactly, and those are the notes that I'll take. But that off the cuff, impromptu dungeon mastering is that's my style.
Well, that's the advantage of the medium.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah,
Exactly.
Which is something I've been talking about recently, is because a lot of people will say like, well, there's no right way to DM, there's no right way to play, and there's no right way to design. I actually think that's wrong. I think there's a lot of confusing, it's complex, and there are a lot of confusing elements to nailing down what a medium should and can provide. But there are a few basics which you should be able to look at and say, if we're not meeting XYZ, we shouldn't be engaged in this medium. If I go to a gallery of art, I would like to be able to perceive the art. So I need art, which is in some sort of medium, like physical or digital medium, which is visual, and I need sufficient, for instance, light to be able to perceive it.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, we probably shouldn't be in an art gallery. If I go to the movies, I expect to see visually moving pictures.
Yeah, you're not expecting people
screen
to come out and do an impromptu like song and dance in front of the screen. Exactly.
Right. I came there for the movie.
Yeah.
So the conceits of the medium are what we expect to engage with. And the exceptions, so there are always going to be exceptions, but the exceptions are notable because of the rule. And they're often extraordinarily creative, but extraordinarily limited. I don't trust just anybody to come up with those things. It's like, I'm the exception. It's like, probably not. Probably not. You're probably attempting it. And I don't want to waste time with that. So somebody is engaged in, if you see this all the time, especially in Dungeons and Dragons primarily. It's not a new school, old school thing. This is going back like 40, 50 years where people just take it and they railroad you through. They're basically writing a shitty novel or a shitty comic book and demanding that you go through the motions in order to go through it. That's something I have no interest in it.
Yeah.
Because it's not part of the medium.
Yeah.
I showed up to play the game. It's a game, which means something. There are like things that I'm looking to do, and I'm looking to be rewarded for them. I want to win.
And you want to have,
RPGs.
and most important, you want to have fun. That's
right.
Well,
I don't know about most importantly, because a lot of people tack on, well, I'm having fun, so we're doing things right. It's like not quite. You could be selling yourself short of a better experience because you're enjoying. I mean, if you have 6 people that you like around a table, chances are you're going to have fun in general, but that's not necessarily because of the activity. I have a lot of fun at my in real life 5th edition game in which I'm a player. And this campaign in particular is fun on its own, in spite of 5th edition, I consider it, because of the different things I've been able to do, thanks to the Dungeon Master. But that doesn't mean that the game itself is necessarily good because I'm having fun around the table. There are experiences that you want to be able to engage with, right? I'm not necessarily having fun if I go look at the different there was a lovely thing at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. It was an abstract artist who worked with the crucifixion. It was like this floating set of cubes that Christ was nailed to, as opposed to the entire cross. I wasn't necessarily having fun, but I was emotionally resonating with it, and it was evoking feeling from me, and my thoughts were looping back and forth with one another as I was connecting with this piece, which is what art does. I was engaged with the conceits of the medium. And that's what I want for RPGs, is I want people to be engaged with the conceits of the medium. So I want people, improvisation is one of the biggest elements of that. The fact that the
Correct.
Dungeon Master can take activities that the players are engaged with, which might not necessarily be covered by the rules explicitly, but often there's some base structure for, here's how you adjudicate. There's some resource for how the GM can adjudicate those different situations, but you don't know, like, what it is that they're going to do. They could, they're going to jump off the balcony, grab the chandelier, swing across, and kick the orc off the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
Right? How do you resolve that? You might not know at the time, but those are the fun things that players can do because that's conceits of the medium.
Of course. And the Competent Man. Masculine Geek, is any of the group familiar with the comic strip Knights of the Dinner Table? If so, any kind of role-playing disaster on that level where the group goes off script /map and DM? I've been a huge Knights of the Dinner Table fan for a very long time. I collect them in the bulk version, the Bundles of Trouble, which have 4 issues packed in one magazine, softcover style. I would actually hardly recommend them, especially if you're not sure about what goes on with the D&D group. Now, having said that, pick up the first issue. Go get the first Bundle of Trouble, Knights of the Dinner Table, KOTD. You can get them on Amazon. I would suggest actually ordering them from the website. I think it's Kenzer and Company, all one word. KENZER and company, ko.com. But if you just type that in Google, you're going to get the website. But yes, and Robert collects them as well. Cool. Yeah, I think I'm up to Bundle of Trouble number 56. I don't know how far into the universe that is, but they're good reading. They've got me through some entertaining stuff. So yeah, Knights of the Dinner Table. And there's usually 2 or 3 different plot lines threads going through the story. So it's quite entertaining. All right, we're up on the hour mark, and I want to keep that about an hour for our fireside chats. So does anyone in the chat, well, first and foremost, thank you for hanging out with us. Thank you for an engaging chat tonight. And does anyone have any other D&D game design related questions for any of us, or in James in particular, since he is doing game design? Now is your chance to ask them.
I'll be happy to answer just about anything. Let's see here.
Let's hear those fingers flying across the keyboard as you frantically type out your question for James. Or any of us. Well, I have a quick question for Amos.
What?
What? He's like, oh God, oh shit, what?
No.
No, not me. We'll do Competent Man. Let me ask Amos real quick. Are you content and enjoying Dungeons and Dragons? Are you glad that you're like, oh hey, I'm glad I found this?
Oh, I absolutely hate it.
Well, I didn't think you hated it, but
no, I do enjoy it. Only really had I never played through a full campaign as a player yet, So I'm kind of looking to try to do that somewhere, or having like a more like fulfilling kind of played out experience with a campaign. But as a dungeon master, it's definitely like challenging, but also kind of realizing that just because I had one campaign go through doesn't mean that's kind of going to be the entire experience. I tried to get some feedback from some players and kind of had to adjust how I perceive that feedback, because some of the players, I would say, maybe aren't the most ideal players that would work with me in the future. So there was that to kind of learn about, but also just the like kind of once things kind of got going, like some people I've talked to were sort of surprised that I didn't start with any modules or anything. I just kind of sat down, and I've shown you in the Masculine Geek, what was it, the forum we have, some of the maps that I made.
Correct. Yeah, they're really cool.
And I've kind of let the players play out a lot of what's going on. I had some general ideas that I've kind of wanting to plan out, but they kind of did a lot of really interesting things. And then I liked what you guys talked about, the improvising part, where during combat or during a role play or something, or some sort of encounter where the players will sort of break out of the mold, or they'll kind of do something a little out of the ordinary to kind of put me on my toes and go, oh, okay, I guess we're going to go this way now. So that challenge and that exploration of coming up with new stories, sort of tying together different plot lines, and also allowing for the players to improvise and do something that I didn't prepare for, is definitely fun. But I am definitely looking forward to being a player again. So
cool. We have two. I'll answer the second question from Competent Man first. What is the longest campaign any of you have played in? I've heard rumors of some groups going for a decade or two, meeting every week for the same campaign. It's correct. In the early and mid 90s, I ran a campaign in the Forgotten Realms, specifically in Undermountain, and that's about 5 years. So, yes.
As a player,
yeah,
4 weeks.
Cool.
That was basically we started a campaign right before the pandemic hit, and then we'll just say some things happened, and I don't play with that group anymore.
Some shit went down.
But as a dungeon master, we had a campaign that went on for about 9 months, so that was the first one I did. There was a lot of gaps in there, but overall, from start to finish, was 9 months.
Okay, cool. How about you, James? Longest
consecutively, usually it's about a year.
Okay.
Usually about a year. And sometimes there's different campaign worlds that will continue on. We'll play multiple campaigns, and there's all these crossovers, and those will go for, actually, in both instances, about 3 years, both in my own and in somebody else's campaign.
Cool. And then there is a Competent Man had a question directed to you, James, and I'll throw it up there for you.
All right. Does James have anything published yet? If not, when expected? As a matter of fact, I do. And the one I definitely recommend is, this is when I got to a big, sort of professional, maybe not professional, but like really polished homebrew, is because I think I can get better. I think I can go higher insofar as quality is concerned. But the best one, like where like this is good quality, was Astral Tides, which I finally published, I think about August of last year. You can find everything that Asha Creativity has published back in on DriveThruRPG is your access, and just look up Asha Creativity. Most of the projects are for pretty good prices. One of them is actually free. So there's a bunch of stuff you could check out there, and it's quite a bit of fun.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. The DriveThruRPG and DM's Guild are linked up on the same payment gateway and engine.
Yeah, so. One Bookshelf, I think it's called.
Yeah. Bullrush has one. This is he's joking, but this is funny. Good there, James. You can read that.
Uncle Vince, I got a date with a girl at the gun range on Friday. What do I do?
Just be yourself, Bullrush.
Make a dexterity saving throw.
Make your charisma roll and make sure you get a critical. Make sure you roll a 20. Roll a 20 on your charisma check. There you go. Since
And
we
if
are
she
in,
gets
we
angry,
are
you
in
got to
game
roll
mode.
some dexterity saving throws for sure.
There, that's it. Who's deep voice Corky?
Who
That's
is
for
Deep
you.
Voice Corky?
I don't know. I'm assuming he's talking about you.
I guess I'm Deep Voice Corky.
I
I don't have an explanation for you.
know, right?
Astral Tides was a Kickstarter project. The vast majority of in fact, I think everything I publish has been a Kickstarter project in one form or another. It's been such an effective means of me getting capital in advance so that I can sit at home and do the design work, which has been convenient. And it's great for motivation. I've never, all my best work is like the 30 days that the project is on Kickstarter. I'm trying to get as much of it done as possible. It's a lot of fun. There's a special energy to getting a crowdfund, I think, because you see the money pouring in, you see the comments come in, people like the updates, and they start, hey, what if this thing came in? And
That's got to be exciting, yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It's learning how to be creative or allowing myself to be creative and refining the different elements of creativity and my specific pursuits and expertise or advantages and the things that I had a natural talent for and refining those into something that could be monetized. It's fun. It's fun, and I'm upset that I missed out on so much of it during my teenage years, but I'm glad I'm doing it now.
Mm-hmm. Here's another one for you.
Are any of you familiar with the Ken Whitman Kickstarter project? 6 for 170K. I'm not. Tabletop RPGs are one of the biggest sections on Kickstarter at the moment. It's because they're one of the most reliable things that actually, like, my projects don't always come out on time, but they always come out. And often they don't come out on time because I'm putting extra stuff in there and I really want to make it, extra.
Most people, I think most of the patrons are forgiving of that, especially when they're getting value.
Especially with that. Like, I asked them, like, guys, I'm going to spend another month on this, but I'm going to add like another 30 pages. And like, go ahead, do your thing.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's good. No, that's good value. Awesome.
And it's easy to get lazy with that attitude. It's like, oh, I'll get to it later. And that's something I have to keep on top of myself with. And some Kickstarter creators have not kept on top of themselves in that regard.
I've heard some stories, yeah.
But the funny thing is, there's less. Weirdly enough, there's less horror stories when it comes to tabletop RPG products, and it's most of the issues are like, well, this is kind of meh, rather than really high quality. But that's just because the market's getting flooded. But less RPG, more things which are a little bit more oatmeal and less special, just by virtue of like so much stuff going out there, rather than somebody took all your money and then left.
Gotcha. Yes, Amos, I can grant thee a wrench. Hang
I was
on.
actually going to post the this year. I don't know if that's going to.
There you go. You are now a mod.
Speaking of mods, Bull Rush has a comment there.
There we go.
I timed Mike's Oxball out. I've never seen him before. Nobody calls James Corky except me. See, I don't know what Corky means. I suspect I have an idea who's behind that account, though.
I've seen James in here before. Don't outright ban anybody unless they're blatantly being a complete fuckwad. But his gentle ribbing was okay. Hopefully he can. Mr. Oxball, if you're out there, don't take it personal. Bull Rush is cantankerous, and it's past his bedtime. He's tired. Corky was
a special guy.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
What's that TV show? The Three Stooges?
I know he's okay. All right. I see that could be construed as a little bit asshole-ish. I'll leave it up to you, mods. I trust you guys. I got more.
I think the one they got him for was this podcast definitely sucks without Rob and TJ. I definitely miss Rob and TJ, and I enjoy talking with them. But this was a little bit more relaxed tonight.
Yeah,
as the Fireside chats are.
Exactly.
I'll put that again. See if that goes through.
Life goes on or some crap.
There we go.
Oh, here we go.
There we are. That's the Astral Tides project. That was a lot of fun.
Okay.
That was the first project that I got. That's a very spell punk kind of like spell. That's basically my version of Spelljammer. Is what that was. And it, floating ships going through the planes and traveling to other planes of existence, traveling to other worlds. There's something about the idea of a voyage in a world of magic that just draws me in instantaneously.
Okay. You would probably really enjoy Alan Dean Foster's Spellsinger series. I do have the entire series. I have doubles, and especially the first 3. I will gift those to you.
I appreciate that.
They are fantastic. I'm not going to give any spoilers. You can look it up. He did Alan Dean Foster did the book versions of Alien, and I think Aliens as well, and a few other things. Pippin flicks, quite a few very quirky sword and sorcery fantasy novels.
He's got quite the resume there.
He really does, yeah. I was going to say something else. Another old person. We had someone in here, the patriarch, a patriarch. This sounds interesting. What's the stream channel about? Go back and watch some of the other episodes. Right now, we're focusing on D&D, Masculine Geek, Dungeons and Dragons, twice a month live stream games. But it's guys sitting down, enjoying each other's company, drinking. Sometimes when Rob was here, he'd be smoking a cigar, and we're hanging out and talking. I suggest you continue watching, and you'll figure out what we're all about. The name kind of says it a little bit. The name will give it away. And thanks for joining us. It's nice to see new faces. So, yeah, well, I wouldn't say TJ hasn't. TJ hasn't. He stepped down and he hasn't. He's still in the games. He would be here, but he had something to take care of. He was going to join tonight. Rob has officially stepped down as of 2 weeks ago. There's nothing going on. There's no hard feelings. There's nothing of that sort. We will have Masculine Geek meetups. We're all meeting up in Louisiana in October in New Orleans.
That's going to be a lot of fun. That's going to be the first time I've seen Rob in person in a while.
Exactly. So
James, you're going to be there?
I am going to be there.
Okay.
Yeah. There'll be Masculine Geek Life subscribers, which you are Amos. You'll get first advance notice on what's happening. Obviously.
Oh yeah, for sure. Going. I was just gonna.
Yeah, I'll let
James
you.
Little crap for not coming. Last time.
and chances are, we'll have another. The meetup this one will be on Friday, maybe spilling over into Saturday. We'll see. But we'll keep you posted. Drew, don't you dare fucking change the channel, you bastards. Exactly. Don't change the channel. We're not changing the channel. No one's changing the channel. Right, yeah. Rob had a midlife crisis. He had to go get himself settled. He's doing some other things with his own channel, and he wants the time to work on it. We still talk. We're still friends. Rob will always be my brother. TJ's will always be my brother. In fact, TJ and I are meeting up to do some tabletop role-playing out in Kansas City and meet up with a few people and hang out, have some drinks, cigars, plot, plan, scheme, and
that's the beauty of people who meet via this place. Is meeting you, Rob, and TJ via Masculine Geek. Meeting Aaron. Aaron's like basically mentoring me through a bunch of stuff. It's incredible.
That is incredible, but also scary at the same time. So
yeah.
It's a little. Talk about a balance. There's a balance there.
The majority of things. Good things that have happened to me in my life have been the graces and kindness of strangers with the folks from Masculine Geek and the people who are my patrons on Kickstarter. In fact, I think the Competent Man had a question about that. If I scroll up,
how is have you mastered the gay hand, James?
I have not mastered the gay hand. I will be.
You don't want to actually. That's not something you want to put on your agenda. That's a complete Aaron.
I dare not step on the toes of the master when it comes to that. But no, speaking of which, the Competent Man asked, did Astral Tides net enough to make it worth it on a per hour of labor basis? If I was purely it's difficult to answer those questions because I am a new content creator, and most people do not get to monetize as early as I did. So it did not net me as much as I would want for the amount of time I was working on it and the amount of time I was spending on it. But part of that was entertainment. Part of the work was entertaining. It made it so that my next big Kickstarter netted me more money than the previous one, so it got my name out there. On a purely monetary basis, I'd say no. On everything else that comes with the business, I'd say yes, it was definitely worth it, because it made my next project even more money. And the tail end was prominent enough that it, pays for beer and pays for bills and stuff like that. It's when you go into how much it takes to monetize creative content, definitely worth it.
Cool. And we have a new follower. Welcome, A Patriarch. Glad to have you. And Copter 049, Kansas City. Cool. If you we'll probably have some kind of impromptu meetup either Friday or Saturday. Follow Masculine Geek on Twitter if you do not already. It's at Masculine Geek 1 on Twitter there, and post updates. Kind of cool to meet fellow masculine geeks from the chat. But yeah, the New Orleans meetup will be mid. I'll post exact dates as we get closer, but that'll be the first part of October. I'm still looking for my first choice of places to stay. Rented out under my feet. Got the rug pulled out from under me on that one, so I have to go to plan B or C. We'll see. Still a ways away. The Kansas City trip is already booked. Flights are in place. That's already set. So that's the end of May. All right. Going once and twice. Any more questions for the group here?
Oh,
otherwise we're gonna sign off.
Need a freaking hair tie soon.
Here, let me throw it up.
What fields are you in, man? I assume he means like fields of work and such.
My full-time job is in IT. I'm a network administrator and project manager.
I'm in game design and I'm a motion graphics artist. And besides that, whenever I do a day job, day jobs are day jobs, not really fields.
Yeah. And he's also a mentoree of Mr. Aaron Gahan Clary. So there's that. I mean, you should. That's completely appropriate to put on your resume. That's a positive. That's a positive.
Absolutely, especially for him.
Well, I'm in Minnesota, so I'm of course in the cornfields.
You corn husker, you.
No, I work in a logistics company, so we'll just
cool.
That's as far as I'll go with that. Chat holes. Yeah, the fire rises.
It does indeed. And TJ and I'll be discussing this with Amos, everyone on the Masculine Geek Life membership, and a few other people. There will be another project that TJ and I are working on that involves tabletop gaming in a more traditional sense. I'm pretty excited about it. Talk about the fire rising. This is going to be very, very good. And that will be perfected as far as a business plan over the Kansas City trip.
Thing?
What I had mentioned before, I think you were privy to that. Yeah. That's
in Gettysburg.
Yeah, that's happening.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's partially underway. There are certain things have already been taken care of as far as it moving forward, but this is going to happen. Mischief and degeneracy. We all are. Oh, that's cool, Patriarch. You're into cybersecurity. Is a good. That's a really good field to be into right now. That's much needed. So that's perfect. Keep on with that. That's for sure. All masculine geeks are into mischief and degeneracy. That is a requirement. So, all right, gentlemen, this has been a very good. Yes, we all miss Rob. We all miss TJ. TJ will be back, and Amos will be back next Wednesday for our D&D session. But this was a very good broadcast. It was, like you said, James, very relaxed, but I had fun. I enjoyed this. And everyone in the chat, old and new, as Mictobus said, the fire rises, and it does indeed. So, without further ado, we're going to sign off for now. I want everyone to enjoy the rest of their weeks, their weekends. If you have not signed up for the Masculine Geek newsletter, please do so. The link is in Masculine. You can go to masculinegeek.life. Top right-hand side will be the link for the newsletter to join that. Right now, you're getting stories, anecdotes, amusing things, just what's going on in the general life of a masculine geek. And right now, you're getting James and I writing for that. And occasionally we have TJ, and Rob will be occasionally writing for the newsletter as well. And he will, every once in a while, he'll be on a show. I have some guests lined up for the late summer, early fall that Rob will be on. So look out for that. Anyway, so that's enough of that. It's 1 hour, 25 minutes. This is a good time to stop. So once again, gentlemen, enjoy your evenings. Remember, keep the red wine flowing. Keep any wine flowing. Keep that lead flying down range. And always, always remember, never take wooden nickels.
Peace.